Wow, this is pretty brutal, actually. I want to see if you think this was out of line. This is obviously White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and she was asked a question by a Bloomberg reporter about what Joe Biden planned to do with the Space Force. So let's go right to the video first to see what you think. Here it is. Here's the Bloomberg reporter asking her the question about what she plans to do or what the Biden administration plans to do with the Space Force.
They ask whether the president has made a decision on keeping the scope of Space Force.
Wow, Space Force. It's the plane of today. It is an interesting question.
All right, let me go back real quick. She said it's the plane of today. What did she mean by that? Well, at one of her first press conferences, she was asked whether Joe Biden, the new president, was going to do anything about Air Force One. Was he going to change the color scheme or change up Air Force One in any way? This is something that new presidents often do to put their mark on the Air Force One plane. And she thought it was a ridiculous question, an asinine question. And she kind of dismissed that as if there was no merit to the question at all. And so she's saying it's the plane of today, saying even asking about the future of the Space Force is ridiculous. And that's what Bloomberg's Josh Wingrove did. He asked if Biden was going to keep the U.S. Space Force or dismantle it. And then she goes on to say she doesn't even know who the contact for the Space Force is. It just seemed very belittling. Let's watch it again.
They ask whether the president has made a decision on keeping the scope of Space Force.
Wow, Space Force. It's the plane of today.
It's an entire branch.
It is
an
an
entire
interesting
branch.
question. I am happy to check with our Space Force point of contact. I'm not sure who that is. I will find out.
All right, that seemed like mockery, didn't it? Oh, yeah. No, it is very interesting. And there's a lot of news out there in the sector of news verticals that cover space. Spacenews.com, a good domain. They say the White House has nothing to say on Space Force. Oddly enough, in some of the polling I've seen, Space Force has decent approval out there over whether people want it to stay around or not. However, I think if you ask Jen Psaki and the White House about this, it probably wouldn't get that same level of approval. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki seemed surprised when a reporter during her daily briefing Tuesday asked if President Biden has made any decisions regarding the U.S. Space Force. Wow, she said, taken by surprise. I don't think she was taken by surprise. I think she was mocking it. Wow, you're going to ask about Space Force? It's like you talk to a child or something. That's what I got out of that. What did you get out of that? Was it mockery? Or was she just adding some light-natured ribbing to the press briefing? At least she didn't say circle back this time. She said it's the plane of today. The plane comment, as I told you, is a reference to a question Psaki got during her January 22nd briefing on what color scheme Biden would prefer for Air Force One. She said Biden has not spent a moment thinking about the color scheme for the presidential airplane. Now, I don't mind if he spends a moment thinking about the scheme for the airplane, but he's saying, or at least he's saying through his spokesperson, Jen Psaki, that he hasn't thought of for a single moment about Space Force either. And it really genuinely is an entire branch of the military, United States Space Force. Of course, they're just starting out and they're figuring things out, but most people think it could be an interesting thing to have with so much going on in terms of satellites around this planet, and God only knows what's happening in the future of warfare. So what do you think about this? What she said and the way she handled that question about Space Force. Was it out of line? Does Space Force deserve to be ridiculed? Is it something that's just funny by nature? I'm sure you have all sorts of thoughts.
They ask whether the president has made a decision on keeping the scope of Space Force.
Wow, Space Force.
Ooh.
It's the plane of today.
There you go. What do you think? Let me know. Jen Psaki's latest issue as she briefs the press there at the White House. And I know you'll give me your comments below as you always do. Thank you for following the News Junkie, and we'll talk to you real soon.